This is huge for the season of the Phoenix Suns, as their biggest question mark, in my opinion, is starting center Jusuf Nurkic. So we're going to dive in and look at his strengths, his weaknesses, what he brings to this team, and how he is going to work with this lineup in Mike Budenholzer's system to help benefit the Suns. And if he doesn't, what could be a possible solution for the Suns? All of that and more on this episode of Suns Digest. I'm Bruce Velez. You guys have been absolutely fantastic showing your love and support over on the channel, and we really do appreciate all the love that you guys show. So if you want to make sure you stay up to date on everything revolving around this team, make sure to hit that like button to stay in the algorithm of all the Suns news. Without further ado, let's dive into the topic at hand. Make sure to grab a snack. And like I discussed in the introduction, we're going to be going over a Jusuf Nurkic preview, as he is, I believe, the biggest question mark starter for this Suns roster. Now, we obviously saw with Durant and with Devin Booker them play pretty solid in for Team USA over the summer, and I have no questions for those guys. Tyus Jones is another question mark coming in as a starting point guard for this Suns team, but I think that he is the best fit for this Suns team and is going to fit just like a glove. So I think then it comes down to Bradley Beal and Jusuf Nurkic. And truly, I think that Jusuf Nurkic has the bigger question mark over him due to the fact that the Suns have other guards that they can kind of fill in to take over for Bradley Beal if he doesn't perform. And that center position could be the weakest position on this Suns roster. So let's dive in and look at some articles going over Jusuf Nurkic this year and kind of going over my predictions for him this season as well. Like I said, we're going to be going over this player preview of Jusuf Nurkic, the Bosnian Beast or Least. And this is by our guy, Suns Reality Check. So let's dive into it. As we can see, obviously, Jusuf Nurkic is a 7-foot center at 290 pounds. His career averages in the NBA are 12.1 points, 8.9 rebounds, and 2.5 assists on zero point 0.9 steals per game and 1.1 blocks per game on 50% from the field, 28%, and 64% from the free throw line. Now, if we want to look at his stats from last year, we can see that his points did go down coming over and playing with this big three, obviously, but his rebounding numbers did go up by 2 rebounds. And we saw that his strength was his rebounding with this team, crashing the boards and being able to get those back up. His assist numbers also went up from 2.5 to 4, getting a little bit more playmaking in with the big position as well. His field goal percentage, but his 3 point percentage and free throw field goal percentage was up, but his 3 point and free throw percentage were down last season. Now, Nurkic is a guy that I'm kind of 50-50 on. Now, the Suns, when they had DeAndre Ayton with Monty Williams, stated a couple years ago that they don't need that dynamic center and that they could run with just a general middle of the pack center and be able to succeed with the stars around them. We saw with Jusuf Nurkic last season that he could be a very integral piece with this team and did have some shining spots throughout this season, but ultimately throughout the year wasn't that standout big when it necessarily was needed most towards the end of the season and into the playoffs. Now, Nurkic, like I think, is a player that is around the middle of the pack for this Suns squad at the art for the Sun squad and in that center position. And ultimately having him, I think, is still solid. But I still think that there are some players that the Suns could go after at that range that could be a little bit better in some aspects than Jusuf Nurkic is for this Suns team. And we'll get into those guys in a little bit. But let's keep diving in and looking at Jusuf Nurkic, like I was saying. The Suns were plus 404 with Nurkic on the court, and by far the best on the team, and their best lineups often featured Jusuf Nurkic. Also, although some of the whack attributed to was how bad Drew Eubanks was. He had the best defensive rating on the team by season's end, and despite being slow and a liability, a ho-hum shot blocker. But of all that began to degrade after a thumb injury in January. His efficiency around the rim, which was never that great, began to decline. His free throw percentage plummeted, and he completely eliminated three-pointers from his game at all. Now, Nurkic is on his third year of his $70 million contract, where a cap hit this year will be around $18 million. He's the 16th highest paid center in the league, sandwiched between guys of Jakob Poeltl and Zach Collins. And I think that money at 16th highest in the center is very fair for a guy in Jusuf Nurkic. I truly believe that that's around where he is at the top center rank anyway. So him getting paid the 16th top center when he's right around that 15th, 16th mark anyways, maybe even a little bit better, is great for Phoenix Suns fans. And two of those guys he's sandwiched in between guys like Jakob Poeltl and guys like Zach Collins. I think both could be players that could also fit into this team as well if things don't work out. But like I said, we'll get into that later. Now, looking at some strengths for Jusuf Nurkic, we obviously there are plenty of strengths that are in this article, but the two that I want to focus on the most, that are going to be the most impactful for Jusuf Nurkic this season, are his rebounding and his screening. Now, he was the team leader in rebounds and ninth in the league with 11 per game, and had a Suns single game record of 31 rebounds. 14 games with 15 more rebounds, where Nurkic is a large human and one of the big men in the NBA who can bang with Nikola Jokic in the paint. Sadly, we didn't get to see this put to the test in the playoffs. He's also very good at his screening. He was 8th in the league in screen assists at 3.8 per game, leading to 6.3 points per game. His dribble handoff game was something that the Suns went away with from the playoffs, where it had been one of a bread and butter across all season. This man is large, and when he sets a screen, opposing defenders feel it, giving critical space to the big three. And I think that we're going to see this screening specifically really help with the additions of Tyus Jones and Monte Morris. I think Jusuf Nurkic is going to be a guy that's going to really step up at that, be able to set those screens, and be able to get some of those players open more, and maybe even have some more rolls to the basket where if he is setting some good screens and getting some good cuts to the basket and getting some easy layups, maybe his finishing will be a little bit better than he's had in previous seasons. And that's where we get to the kind of gripe with Jusuf Nurkic, which is his finishing. Definitely his weakest point. If we want to look at his finishing stats, I mean, total shots at the rim are good, unassisted at the rim are good, but all those finishing stats, percentage of rim unassisted, rim shot creation, drive pass out rate, drive assist pass out rate, contact finish rate, field goal efficiency at the rim. C, D, 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 C, D. That is not good. With a finishing talent of overall grade F. That is not what you want to see out of a starting center, especially in this league with all these big players. That is the one gripe with Jusuf Nurkic's game, and one kind of area of concern with his game as well in my eyes. Ultimately, I truly think that a guy like Jusuf Nurkic will be able to look better with this team, with these better players. He also has a better backup center in Mason Plumlee. He also has better point guards in Tyus Jones and Monte Morris, who are going to be able to get him the ball, be able to help him set up around the rim. And ultimately, if he can get his finishing up a bit better, that would be great and huge for this Suns team. Like I mentioned, Nurkic also looks noticeably slimmer this season, which could be huge for this squad. And ultimately, I think he's going to be one of the top tier centers for this Suns roster. I really think that this rebounding ability with Jusuf Nurkic, having these other point guards send these guys up, is going to be fantastic. And even though he might not be perfect for late game finishing scenarios, where they might go into a little bit of a smaller ball lineup to similarly complement with some different teams, I think Nurkic is definitely going to be a stellar rebounder for this team. What happens if Nurkic isn't that type of guy? What happens if Nurkic doesn't have this type of season that we all think he is going to have? Well, that gets us into the next part here, which kind of dives into my prediction for Jusuf Nurkic and kind of looking at what I think is going to happen to him this season. So ultimately, this season, I think he's going to stay with this squad, and I think he's going to be with this squad. But if anybody is to be on the trade block, if anybody's name is to be thrown out there, the Bosnian beast in Jusuf Nurkic would be a name that I would think could be concerning to be thrown out there. Now, like we mentioned, guys like Zach Collins and a guy in Jakob Poeltl, I think are very similar to Jusuf Nurkic and have better specialties than some do than Jusuf Nurkic does, and Jusuf Nurkic has better specialties than they do. I think Poeltl could be definitely a better defender, and even though he's already a sound rebounder, he could be that defensive front for the Suns at that center position. Guy in Zach Collins also is a pretty good defender, but also has that better finishing at the rim. It would be a little bit better of an inside scorer than a guy in Jusuf Nurkic. And ultimately, another guy that I think that could be very interesting is Clint Capella, who is a fantastic rebounding beast for the Atlanta Hawks. Now, ultimately, I think Jusuf Nurkic will stay. And with the CBA and the second apron regulations and stuff, it is very difficult for teams to be able to trade for other stars, especially for the Suns to be able to do so as well. So if Jusuf Nurkic doesn't have this standout season, doesn't have this blossoming that we all think he is going to have, where I truly think he's going to have right around 10 points this season, 11 rebounds, and a little 3 assists, averaging 1 block per game, zero point 0.8 steals, and going on a 50% shooting from the field. I think the three-pointer is going to go down as well. We'll see around 30%. And that free throw percentage, hopefully we can see at 65%. If he can do all that stuff, I think he'll be solidified with this team. But if he has a little bit of a worse of a season, don't be surprised to see if Jusuf Nurkic's name is thrown around that trade rumor and at the trade deadline is moved to pick up that key starting center in one of those guys like Capella, like Podol, like Zach Collins, depending all on if one of those teams that they're on wants to tank or if one of those three players is looking really, really great. But let me know what you guys think down below. How do you guys feel about Jusuf Nurkic this season? Where do you guys think he's going to stand in the rank of NBA centers? Drop down your thoughts down below in the comment section. Once again, I'm Bruce Velez. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of Suns Digest. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.